honestly not that long ago. I believe it's like 9 hours ago. Ubisoft issued an apology, a really interesting apology towards Assassin's Creed Shadows, and of course I think a lot of people already know that. I think a lot of people have been shitting on the game, of course, for obvious reasons. From the consultant they hired, from the factual whatever historian consultant they hired, and to the narrative they've been pushing, to let's see the reference they're using, from the story itself they're picking, and of course so many mistakes, so many cultural mistakes through either the graphics or the or the gift packages they send, or even the promotional booths they set up. There's so many mistakes been adding up, and people may be able to overlook one or two mistakes, but when there's so many stacked up like this against them, it's kind of hard to, it gets hard to overlook. It gets really hard to overlook what kind of what kind of studio they are, or what their focus is, or what their purpose is. Anyway, through all the backlashes, of course, it's not just from the internet, it's also from the Japanese government, and I believe they're getting either investigated or they're actually getting sued for this by the Japanese government, and of course they are going to issue an apology for it. And of course the apology are in both Japanese and English, of course, and of course, it makes sense that it's gonna be in Japanese, and it's supposed to be because it is towards their Japanese audience. And okay, let's read through the English one first. I think it's pretty interesting. The overall sentiments of the apology, quote unquote, it's kind of interesting. Okay, so to our esteemed Japanese community, a message from the Assassin's Creed Shadow development team. First, we want to express our heartfelt thanks for all your support for the Assassin's Creed series, which now has its own history spanning almost 20 years. What a great 20 years that is. Over this time, we have explored various settings, time periods, and characters from Assassin's Creed during the Third Crusade to a Viking in 9th century England, and countless more. For many of our team, creating an Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan has been a long cherished game, but they somehow tarnished that. Since the announcement of Assassin's Creed Shadows, we have received many positive reactions. Yeah, sure, there are positive reactions, but also some it's kind of underplaying the criticism. Some criticism, including from you, our Japanese players. We share your passion for history and deeply respect your care for the historical and cultural integrity of our rich heritage. But you didn't do that when you didn't do enough research, when you're sending all those promotional items to streamers or even sending the booths. Okay, doesn't seem like you actually really care about your history. We would like to address a few points to clarify our intentions and creative decisions. Okay, overall authenticity efforts. We have put significant effort into ensuring an immersive and respectful representation of feudal Japan. But I believe someone pointed out that some of your architecture were wrong, or a few like structures were wrongly placed. So I want to say it's a respectful representation of feudal Japan. Just even if you're taking Yasuke, the character itself, out of it, there are still a lot of historical, cultural, I would say, fact that's wrong about the game, that's almost probably added in carelessly just for show, or because of a spectacle, or for some other reason, or just carelessness, or just doesn't really care about the culture at all. However, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Shadows, as factual representation of history or historical characters. Instead, we aim to spark curiosity, encourage players to explore and learn more about historical settings we get inspired by. I don't know how I feel about that one, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about what they said over there. because if they want to respect, because through their many actions, let's say that they hired quote unquote historical, I don't know, like who the consultant they hired, which is a some lady that writes a man boy romance in Japan, which is her entire list of publishers are online for everyone to see, right? So it's not like they hire someone by mistake. It is being selected on who they hire and who they put into a video to promote the game. So it is intentional. So they know who the kind of person they hire. And for saying that to spark curiosity, encourage players to explore and learn about the historical settings you get inspired by. But I don't know, like the consultant they hire doesn't really inspire people to be inspired by it. And the thing is that since the settings, a lot of settings that they don't make mistakes in previous Assassin's Creed games, but they do here. But I can understand that let's say the older Assassin's Creed games, of course they altered the layout of the city in order for a better traversal. Of course, you still have to incorporate gameplay, right? You still have to incorporate a certain gameplay perspective into it, so that, but it still feels authentic because they kind of have to make a trade-off between how it looks and into gameplay. But over here, sometimes it just feels like a lot of mistakes they've been making has nothing to do with gameplay. It just purely cultural mistakes that shouldn't happen if you have a so-called historical consultant on to, you know, at least guide you through it, right? So basically, and the thing is that now they're trying to say that like they're not like historically accurate or truly fictional, and but the thing is that they've been kept pushing that this is part of history. For example, they've been kept pushing that Yasuke is a samurai, or they kept even pushing that a certain thing happened, it is factual, it is historically accurate. And since even during their first press conference or first release, they kept saying that you got to play a samurai and then it's Yasuke, and it just that you've been kept pushing the fact, the basically you try to keep pushing a non-fact to be fact, to either you try to pandering to some community or try to earn some certain points, political points, because you kept pushing this, and then now you kind of backpedal into saying that this is a fantasy, which is, I don't think people are going to buy it, right? So I don't think people are buying it, and I don't think you care enough to, I don't know, either you hire the historian on purpose or you just didn't really care. And especially you pick Yasuke as the face of a samurai instead of, I would say, like, normally Assassin's Creed wouldn't allow you to play a fictional game, like a historical character. They normally like weave it into the story, more like a background character, so that you can dip into like a more of a historical accurate, like a kind of plot point, instead of involving actual history. For example, let's say Da Vinci, right? You involve Da Vinci as an NPC, and then you kind of see where his inventions are coming from a point of view of the game. And it's also that you can have a natural weave into a natural weave between history and game, which is really well done. And over here, it doesn't really make much sense, because you kind of get to play Yasuke and then you kind of present him into a historical accurate figure, which is samurai, which doesn't feel authentic when you do it that way, right? I mean, even they using the authenticity as a word here, so which is really funny. Promo design and entertainment to tell compiling historical fiction that's feudal Japan. Okay, that's fine. Our team extensively collaborates with external historians, researchers, internal team at Ubisoft to inform our creative choices. So that's the thing, right? That's the thing. Like people has been questioning you, the historian that you've been hiring, which is which is kind of wild once what the research is done came to light. Despite these sustained effort, we acknowledge that some elements in our promotional materials have caused concerns within the Japanese community. For this, we sincerely apologize. Okay, that's fine. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if people didn't call it out, right? If the internet reaction isn't as strong, would they still apologize for this? Would they? I don't know. They've probably been calling those kind of people racist or all kind of other names just for criticizing the inaccuracy in their historical materials. All game footage represents so far development, and the game will keep evolving until launch, which I doubt it. Which I actually highly doubt it, because when you see, if you see the, I think the gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, it looks terrible. It looks completely terrible. It just looks horrendous. Okay, some of the effect, explosion effect, some of the textures, some of the textures look so rough, and the UI doesn't look good. For example, when you get hit, it's just a big like red indicator, which is normally I would say it doesn't, I don't know, it just looks so out of place. Like for example, for COD or other like FPS game or any type of shooter games, when you get hit, there's still red indicator, but it's really faint, but you kind of feel like which direction it's coming from, so it doesn't obstruct the surrounding environments, because you kind of need that visual point. And that one just a big red across the screen. It's just so ugly to look at. So I don't know like how it will look, but honestly I would say that the footage we got so far for Shadows does look better than Outlaws. So I don't know like how much are they gonna change. I don't know, it's just based on the constructive criticism we have received, we will continue our effort until we put this game into your hand and beyond. I'm not sure. I don't think they're actually gonna change anything, like I said, because even Outlaw said they're probably not gonna change anything. They're not gonna delay. So for Outlaw, they're not gonna delay anything. That means that if they put out that kind of video out, if that's the best footage they got in order to promote the game, that kind of means that that's the best they got. So it doesn't really make much sense. We also want to clarify that while we have been consulting with many people throughout the development process, we are in no way responsible for the decision that taken into the creative team into interest gameplay entertainment. I mean, that's kind of true, but it's kind of push away the responsibility for the people you consulted with. So if this is the case, then what's the point of hiring? If this is the point, then what's the point of consulting anyone, right? So that means that you must have taken some sort of idea from them, at least using them as a verification, as a point of reference, or a point of it's a way to verify a certain factor in the game. And you deliberately putting out the historian that wrote all those more questionable materials out there as your front spokesperson, kind of, for all your consultant. That kind of make everyone question your effort or how effective your consultant is going to be when that's the best you got, right? Consequently, we respectfully request that any criticism not to be directed at our collaborators, both internal or external. I don't know. It's kind of like, but you kind of, I don't know. I think there's nothing wrong with criticism. I think, and then especially after all of these came out, I think people have the right to criticize the people you hire, and the internal decisions you made. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's apology so far at all. Creative liberties and historical inspirations. While we thrive for authenticity in everything that we do, Assassin's Creed games are works of fiction inspired by real historical events and figures. From its inception, the series has taken creative licenses and incorporate fantasy elements to craft engaging and immersive experience. representation of Yasuke in your game is an illustration of this. Its unique, mysterious life made him an ideal candidate to tell Assassin's Creed game from the setting of feudal Japan. As a backdrop, while Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. We have woven this carefully into our narrative, and with our other lead character, the Japanese shinobi Noe, who is equally important in the game. Our dual protagonists provide player with different gameplay styles. We greatly value your feedback and encourage you to continue sharing your thoughts. Respectfully, while we understand that meeting everyone's expectations is very difficult, and we sincerely hope that Assassin's Creed Shadows launch on November 15, players in Japan and around the world appreciate the dedication, effort, and passion we have poured into this. So, I guess, I don't know, like the last bit, I don't know, it's like, but the thing is that it's like now they kind of, it just feels like they've been backpedaling into saying that we're no longer historically, like, oh, we're not like historically accurate and we just be fantasy, while the other evidence pointed as, yes, you guys been pushing Yasuke to be a samurai, or else all these all the wiki war wouldn't happen. The battle between the editing battle between in wiki wouldn't have happened, or it wouldn't have, or the thing is that it wouldn't have happened when you know, the game journal has been pushing this out too, that finally they found some historical, like a Japanese historian that's agree with this, that's agreed to this, that okay, some historian does agree that okay, Yasuke is a samurai, and the game journals will be pushing this out relentlessly. And it's not that even long ago, that it was only 2 days ago, they finally found a historian called Yu Hirayama, and he said that okay, Yasuke is confirmed to be, but the thing is, if you look closely into this person, into this historian, it seems like he has a close association with like a certain group in Japan that's likely been pushing into a more of I would say more of a like a, I won't say DEI, but I mean like they will be more favorable towards like this type of inclusion that ignores historical fact. So I wouldn't like, it just feels like Ubisoft have been pushing this narrative that Yasuke is historically accurate, instead of from the gate that says that this is a fictional work. I think that people would be more accepting if Ubisoft didn't push this initially and just straight up saying that this is a fictional work. And I think people will have, people will still have an issue with it, because why? Like, why would you pick this person to represent samurai in feudal Japan when there's so many other ways to, like, for people to actually, I don't know, to play the game? No, that doesn't feel that way, because it never happened before, right? Because the thing is that it never happened before. It never happened in any other game, any other title. This is the first time they're doing this, so it just makes people questioning their motivations of why they're doing it. It just seems like you just use like a simple samurai, or just play it safe, and just play like play as a Japanese ninja, like someone from the Fuma clan, or like some of the famous like shinobi clans, right? Because there's so many of them that you can pick from. There's so many like interesting stories that you can do with this, especially that when I believe not that long ago there was a ex Ubisoft, was it like I forgot, was it a dev or some narrative lead that leaked that the supposed story of the of this game Shadows that's been planned for many years. I don't even know, like a first drop or something like that, but like there was supposed to be another story they were planning to tell, and it's been changed to this. Either that one's real or not, it seems like a more interesting story than this. I don't know. because between all of this, like editing, all this like a wiki war back and forth, it just doesn't seem like they've been treating this as a fiction or as a fantasy altogether in the end. So I don't know, like no matter what, like all enders, they all look terrible. It's just terrible, man. Look terrible. I don't think they're gonna change anything. They try to like kind of like a soften the blow, like they're kind of using this to softening. They just try to use it to soften their blow. And of course, I don't really care about what the English side says about this. I think it's more important to see. I think it's more important to see what the Japanese gamers side and what they have to say about this. I think since this apology is supposedly towards the Japanese community, so I think it's better to, take a look at what the Japanese gamers have to say about this. I know that I'm probably gonna use translation for all of this, since I don't read Japanese. I cannot read Japanese, so maybe there's gonna be translation errors, but we can do our best to take a look. I think this one is the most viewed. This one is the most viewed post, and let's see what this what you're saying. I think the story about Yasuke should just be considered fiction based on Yasuke. The issue of historically retelling is no longer a Ubisoft issue, but the Lockley issue. However, Yasuke is no longer the problem. The plagiarism of material from the manga, organization, and cultural heritage side, and misrepresentation of Japanese history, and the misinterpretation of Chinese, among other things, show disregard for Japan. The problem is these. Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with this. So basically, if you just take Yasuke completely out of the entirety of the topic, there are still so many mistakes, cultural mistakes made by Ubisoft. That just shows that it probably just doesn't really care at all. Honestly, I think it just doesn't really care. I don't think they just care. I don't think they cares. Yeah, I don't think they cares. Yeah, I just think they just don't care, honestly, at all. Which makes sense. I think that if you take all of this out, it still doesn't make any sense. Let's see what else she's saying. I apologize for comparing it to other games, but although Ghost of Tsushima is fiction and some historical revisions are made, it does have a definite respect for Japanese culture. The camera work was reminiscent of Kurosawa's film, which is true. I think they have one of the filters, which is a black and white film filter, which is really incredible. The placements of animals that do not actually live on Tsushima. Wait, the placement of animals that do not actually live on Tsushima. The equipment used was from a Sengoku period rather than from Kumakura period. And the villain, the Mongolian general, was a fictional character. In order to make it a more entertaining work, it was clearly stated that it was fiction, and it was elevated to the appeal of the game. I'm sorry, but the advertising for this film does not seem to show the same respect for Japanese culture as Tsushima, which is, which is true. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima, it's just that, of course, all of this game took a creative liberty, but I think that it just still comes down to authenticity, right? Because Ghost of Tsushima tried their best to kind of take the history and make it more entertaining, and instead of like, and they don't make like blatant cultural mistakes, if not for a gameplay, more of a more of a gameplay benefits, right? For example, the Mongolian general, that makes it more just a more interesting villain to play against. I think it's just that there's no but the thing is that with the mistake Ubisoft made, there's no benefit. There's almost no benefit to gameplay, or there's no trade-off for them to do this. Is besides just being careless, or doesn't really care about the culture at all. See the second post. So we have, thanks to your company, I was able to become aware of the historical changes being made by the forces of globalization against Japan. Thank you very much. Okay, wow, that's very interesting. And let's see. And someone replied below says, what do you mean? And this person replied in English, I think. Japan has been subject to various forms of interference from globalists in the past, but this time, thanks to Thomas Lockley, it has come to the surface of an easy to understand way, and we are grateful for that. That's very interesting. The access of. But the thing is that, like, I believe Thomas Lockley right now is on the run. He's been, fired from Nihon University, and I'm not sure where he is right now. I think he's been dodging. Basically, he went into hiding now. Let's see, let me just read a few more of these, and then we're gonna go back to gameplay, okay? And let's see, it's so roundabout that I don't know what you're trying to say. I mean, yeah, I mean that's kind of what they do. Either this is a ChatGPT created post, or just basically just corporation jargon. It just kind of saying that, it's not our fault. We try our best. This is all fictional, and but still, it's just like apology, but not really apologizing for anything. Okay, let's see. Last one. This is a pretty long one. Let's read through this. Let's see what you got. That'll be really interesting. I play almost all of the previous games, but I especially love Assassin's Creed Origins. Origin was a story about Bayek, an Egyptian whose culture and religion are completely different from ours. To be honest, in the beginning of the game, the character's view on life and death, customs, and religious terminologies were all foreign to me, and I found many parts difficult to get into. However, as I played the game, these skills naturally came to me, and I felt like I was able to identify with Bayek. I never played Origin, so I apologize. Who has a completely different cultural background to us. It was a wonderful game. I also believe that there's no other work that excels in constructing the world of Egypt at that time. So in the original Fumitsu interview, it was written that in order to depict medieval Japan, we were looking for a samurai who could represent us, even though we are not Japanese. I'm very disappointed with this statement. There may be a difference in the nuance of the translation, but I couldn't believe that it was coming from the company that made Origins. I think that's most worrying about this current uproar is whether or not this game is contributing to historical revisionism. To be honest, the issue involved are beyond my ability to handle, so I will leave that to the experts. But the thing that worries me the most is the fundamental philosophy behind how the world is depicted in this game, rather than a depiction that pursues detailed realism, like Origins, which recreates the world of that time in the game. I strongly hope for an experience that allow you to become one with the world. As a fan of the series, I hope that Shadows doesn't end up being just a work set in Japan during the Sengoku period. Yeah, I really agree. I think this person is more positive. I think this person is a lot more positive. Yeah, I think this person is a lot more positive, and he wanted to be more, I would say, optimistic. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, like the old Assassin's Creed game, they really tried, right? You can see that they really show their effort. They really show their effort into represent history, honestly, as much as they can. Remember that, like, I think this is a post that I think a lot of people remembers that when they're showing the crossbow, when crossbow doesn't fit the period, that they actually removed it instead. I mean, that's the effort that before they took to represent either the history, the period, and the location. But now it's just no longer the case. Either Ubisoft is trying to overcompensate for whatever reason they wanted to do, or Ubisoft is just pandering towards something, or just Ubisoft just pandering. I think either for certain groups. I don't even know what were they thinking when they put this out, especially the carelessness they have towards the culture itself. So it's really I don't know. I think that besides being mad about it, it's just disappointing. I honestly, in the end, it just comes down to disappointment. It's just disappointing to see Assassin's Creed becoming something like this. And especially that once you learn more and more about like this is only one instance. Let's say that if something like this happened, this is only one instance that we caught on because I think they kind of underestimate other cultures' love for their own history, right? I think compared to Western cultures, I think Asian culture have a stronger like bond towards their heritage, their ancestry, and their history, because even in China, right? Even in China has a really strong I would say loyalty towards their ancestry, right? Like I don't think like a lot of maybe just Western culture just doesn't understand that we take history or we take the heritage very seriously, and like that's why like when we, let's say in Chinese, right? But that's why like when we curse someone, we curse their ancestors. That's the kind of strong bond that we have towards history. And the same thing in Japan. Japan took their cultural heritage very seriously. You can see that they pass down a lot of their cultures from generation to generations. For example, like just so many things that's, for example, like shrines, for example, festivals and everything. There's so many historical like passage down generations because they took their history really seriously. And I think that maybe Ubisoft just kind of doesn't understand Asian culture at all. That's why they think they can get away with this kind of thing, or they can just get away with this, and they think that maybe they can rewrite Japan's history without anyone noticing, and then Japanese community would just bend over for this to happen, and they wouldn't even say anything, or they can just hide behind a blanket. A blanket, like if you can just hide behind like a shield by calling them racist, maybe they wouldn't retaliate as much as Western culture. But I think they just underestimate the cultural importance within Japan. So now this issue being escalated to this point, they kind of have like it. Basically, they have. I would say they couldn't. It's like they basically cornered. Ubisoft basically cornered on this. Right? There's so many investigation going on with them, and this whole issue over here kind of opened the doors for other people to see what they've been doing. And let's say that if Ubisoft is doing something like this so openly, and that means that there are more instances, and people will be more aware of what's happening, and they will start to investigate more and more into, let's say, other companies that are doing the same thing, right? And they're probably, and basically what happened is that Ubisoft basically opened the door for people to questioning any source of like this type of like history. Let's say I think one of the comments just said the revisionism of history. So it kind of means that they kind of open the floodgate for people to be like this, because they picked a kind of a wrong target to do this with. So it's kind of fascinating, but I think a lot of people kind of glad this happened, so that more people are aware of this happening, especially when this news gets pushed outside the gaming community and been pushed into like other spaces, like other spaces, and people are more aware that maybe not just gaming, maybe in other spaces they've been pushing the same thing again. So I think that in a way, I think this is a good thing, especially that when you realize there's so many things out there that have been trying to rewrite history, and especially I think that people, especially what happens with Wiki, and people kind of understand now. Okay, so Wiki can be like this. Wiki can be changed like this relentlessly, regardless of whatever the factual is, and people can just go in and change things like this. and I think that has also put like a big doubt on the Wikipedia, which is also a good thing. I think you should never take like a wiki as a factual reference, right? You know, you also have to look at their reference, look at what they're referencing. You have to, and then you just have to look for the original sources. So I think this is also a good thing that kind of expose what Wikipedia, what kind of information are on Wikipedia. I think that, I mean, a lot of teachers or profs already said it, right? You cannot use Wikipedia as a reference because they kind of know that people can just go in and change. But I think a lot of people just most often forget that you can actually just go in and just do a bunch of changes, do a bunch of editings. And you can see that through either the wiki war or how Thomas Lockley was able to create this fictional character from the beginning in order to promote his books. I think this whole situation is disappointing that Ubisoft kind of became like this, but I think at the same time that it's kind of good. I think is that it's also good that, you know, people are starting to become, I would say, more aware of what's happening. You know, yeah, I think that's my thought on it so far. I'm pretty sure that I'm probably gonna go read through like a more response from the Japanese community side. I know that's probably I'm using like Google Translate. Like some of them probably is likely to be mistranslated, but I think I can still get the general idea what they're thinking. And from the top 3 most liked, most viewed post, is also kind of like they don't really buy it. They don't really buy their apology. You can kind of see that where the Japanese like community, where their point of view is. So I don't think they're buying it, which makes sense. It doesn't feel authentic. Even if you apologize for Yasuke, and there's still like a whole lot of other issues over there, and you only basically apologize on that for like one small section on the 3rd page. Yeah, I don't think they're buying it. So yeah, that's what happens. That's what it is. And